Today, of course, we support our libraries from public funds, but the libraries themselves have been part of that movement of adult education and self-improvement of which I spoke at the beginning. The Rhondda novelist, Rhys Davies, recalled the branch library in the front room of an ex-collier's house close to my home. It was run by the South Wales Miners' Federation. The librarian's job was his compensation for losing a leg in a pit accident. And we don't need to list, of course, all the miners' institutes and libraries. Raymond Williams told us that a culture is common meanings, the product of a whole people, and offered individual meanings. In other words, the product of a person's whole committed personal and social experience. Culture is central to our devolution project. Community organisations are actively promoting culture as part of their approach to regeneration. And in our regeneration programmes, we can point to specific examples of support for cultural activity. Next year in the Rhondda, Valley's Kids, based in the regenerated art space that is Soafridamus Chapel in Pennegraig, is working on a drama linking communities in South Africa and the Rhondda in the build-up to London 2012 as part of Wales's Cultural Olympiad initiative. The project, being written by Lawrence Allen, was inspired by the iconic film Zulu, featuring Ferndale's Stanley Baker, made in 1964 just as Nelson Mandela was beginning his 27-year-long incarceration. And Valley's Kids wants to bring the two strands together to form one cohesive and massive performance in 2012, performed in both South Africa and Wales. One of the ways, of course, in which people embark on a cultural conversation is by starting from their own experiences. 2 years ago, the Penrhys Partnership marked both the 40th anniversary of its estate and the 470th anniversary of the destruction of the Penrhys shrine and statue. It published an oral history of the estate and now features again in the Cistercian Way pilgrimage. These oral histories are widespread throughout the valleys. All over the valleys, I find local groups undertaking work on family history. Our local libraries and county records offices provide help with local records and local photographs. Local history groups produce well-researched websites and local history books. Young people work with older generations on the histories of their area. Valley's Kids in the Rhondda worked with BBC Wales and the National Library on the Rhondda Lives project to help people tell digital stories about their communities. Digital storytelling has been central to projects on digital inclusion, funded through the Assembly Government's former Communities at One programme. And its successor programme, Communities 2.0, is funding the establishment of a centre of excellence on digital storytelling at the University of Glamorgan. Over in Blaen y Gwent in Cwm Tulare, having digitised 50 years of the local newspaper, the South Wales Gazette, the community's first partnership's Cyber Tulare group has launched a website, southwalesgazette.info, and searchable archives to help family historians. In the Heads of the Valleys, the visitor centre that's been long planned will now be housed in the General Office in Ebbw Vale with the Gwent Record Office, which will become the cornerstone of a genealogy experience. And the archives, of course, of the Gwent Record Office contain the minutes of the Tredegar Workmen's Medical Aid Society, where you can read of the work of Councillor Aneurin Bevan and Dr. A.J. Cronin. Back to the Rhondda, our own spectacle theatre, supported by the Arts Council, last year produced its community play commemorating the centenary of the Tonopandi riots. Play Tales from the Horse's Mouth had roles played by dozens of local people. And I could go on. I could tell you about the Mardi Archive meeting at the local Zion Chapel, working with support from the staff of the Glamorgan Records Office on the preservation of those records. So history, of course, remains central to our cultural conversations and central to the pride of our communities. Gwyn Thomas wrote that most lives are a yearning for coherence. 30 years ago, Raymond Williams pointed out the importance of family history to the Welsh industrial novel. What is really being written through it, he said, is the story of a class. Indeed, effectively, given the local historical circumstances of a people. And that, of course, is what Dai Smith recognized in his account of the first 40 years of Raymond Williams' life, talking of Raymond Williams' own parents in this way. The young man and his wife had already seen how the rhythm of their private, intimate lives moved to the beat of circumstances and forces that paid little notice to their individual wills. They had understood what connected them to others like them, without ever wishing that their own particularity be submerged. We all trace these stories, and hopefully in Wales, enough of us go beyond nostalgia to make the links to a wider community and a wider social solidarity. And back in reverse, having had Di Smith on Raymond Williams, now turn to Raymond Williams on Di Smith, writing in Arcade magazine 30 years ago when he said, "Every reader of this new history will find at some point a moment when his own memory stirs and becomes that new thing, an historical memory, a new sense of identity and relationships. The personal memory, local and specific, is then suddenly connected with the history of thousands of people through several generations. As the particular and the general, the personal and the social are at last brought together, each kind of memory and sense of identity is clarified and strengthened. The relations between people and a people start to move in the mind." Today, the environment forms another strand of our cultural conversations as we move from the older narrative of industrialization to a newer narrative of sustainability. Raymond Williams recognized that in any Welsh mining valley, he said, there is a profoundly different yet immediately accessible landscape of open hills and the sky above them, of a rising light and of a clear expansion into which it is possible both physically and figuratively to move. It is a shape which manifests not only a consciousness of history, but a consciousness of alternatives, and then, in a modern form, a consciousness of aspirations and possibilities. Or, as Gwyn Thomas put it more cynically, society and nature have come together here to achieve some amazing patterns, and they should be told not to do it again. Sometimes the political themes themselves get recycled. Rhys Davies again warned back in the 1930s. A university professor of economics tells a worried conference of the Hotel and Restaurants Association that the hope of Wales lies in an expanding tourist industry which would redress the balance of our lost coal market. The vision of Wales transformed entirely into a playground of hotels and restaurants, charabancs and landladies is somehow more frightening than the industrial nightmare. And that heritage debate, of course, carried on. And in the 80s and 90s, and Bella Dix has written about how leisure and tourism was supposed to take over from manufacturing as a regeneration strategy. Well, Rhys Davies saw it coming 60 years before. Another way in which we are opening up our cultural conversations to more people is the work that the Assembly has done on digital literacy. And this will become, of course, more important to the book market as well. Research undertaken found that the e-reader market doubled over Christmas, that 7% of British adults received a dedicated e-reader over the festive period, and it was suggested that maybe as many as 10 million e-books have been sold in the UK since Christmas, which is slightly over 50% of print books sold in that period. So our lives, of course, are being transformed by digital technology. I'm told that the Library of Wales, and I'll come on to that, is now available, or some books from it are now available on the Kindle. But shopping, correspondence, news services, of course, are just some of the areas that are being dramatically changed by new technologies. But we know that people still feel uncomfortable. People still feel comfortable saying, I can't use computers, when they would be very uncomfortable saying they were illiterate or innumerate. And the danger we have is that people who don't get the new technologies could become increasingly socially and economically disenfranchised. So bridging the digital divide is central to new ways of viewing inclusion and exclusion. And it's important to get people engaged in the technologies through things that actually interest them. So 5 years ago, the Assembly government launched its Communities at One initiative, which I mentioned earlier, which set out to encourage community groups and voluntary sector organisations in the most disadvantaged areas of Wales to engage with technologies in ways that were directly relevant to their lives. The initiative was supported by European funds and carried out by the Wales Cooperative Centre, which is now running the successor scheme Communities 2.0. And amongst those schemes were initiatives by groups like Age Concern, getting older people involved through digital cameras to explore how to use digital cameras and then upload the materials and develop from that. We had volunteers in 3 South Wales Valley areas setting up and managing the community radio stations, but using digital broadcasting equipment and starting to learn, in some cases, the basics of email and computing. Pigeon racers, I love this one. Pigeon racers in South Wales were still working from paper records, unlike those in England. But thanks to Communities at One, they now use word processing, digital photography, and email to keep each other updated and to network virtually with similar societies around the UK. We have many examples of other groups developing digital stories about their communities. And the imagination that's been shown by people has been very significant. We've had a whole series of different kinds of groups: blind people, elderly people, children, disaffected young people, ethnic minority groups, teenage mothers, all involved in website design, podcasts, digital photography and filmmaking, community online shopping schemes, informal learning, newsletter design, driving tuition, cricket coaching, many different schemes indeed, and schemes developed in both English and Welsh and in ethnic minority languages. And again, let me say, our libraries also have played an important role with free computer and internet access in all Welsh public libraries through over 2,500 PC terminals across Wales. So the digital world, of course, offers us the opportunity to reconnect with older cultural conversations in Wales. Never again need books go out of print when they can be downloaded to an e-reader. And this offers long-term hope to schemes such as the Library of Wales, which was an initiative of the Culture Committee chaired by Rosemary Butler in the 2003 to 2007 period, and then supported by Alan Pugh when he was the Culture Minister. And the Library of Wales, of course, keeps in print, as Wyn said, English language literature of Wales in ways that will connect our past to our present. And Di, as the editor of that series, has said, what we have here is a superb European literature that is largely unknown even in Wales. So we have embarked, since devolution, on a series of cultural conversations. The cultural moment of devolution in Wales, to my mind, was a moment when Welshness became ordinary. Ordinary, not extraordinary. Ordinary, not exclusive. The Assembly Government has engaged with the citizens of Wales in a series of cultural conversations, supporting people at the level of their own experiences to make sense of their own lives and their own times, and the lives of the communities in which they live and where they have come from, enabling them to learn at their own pace. But if all are to be part of the cultural conversations of our young democracy, then we have to equip everyone with the basic skills to participate in them: reading, writing, digital literacy. If we work with people at their level through their interests, helping them build on their own experiences, then I believe more people will take part in these cultural conversations. I'm optimistic about this. I think it is part of our tradition, a Welsh tradition, developing adult education from within our own communities, building on people's own experiences, building on the interest in community and family history as a vehicle for learning, using these particular interests and experiences as a route to engaging people in the new technologies, ensuring that culture is ordinary, that education is ordinary, in a Wales where Welshness now, thankfully, is ordinary. Thank you for joining me on my Rhondda ramble.